The ego is your biggest obstacle. What if the reason you're still stuck isn't because you're not confident enough, but because you're clinging too tightly to who you think you are? We're told to love ourselves, to build our self-esteem, to believe in ourselves. But what if that voice you're feeding, the one that always needs to be right, that hates being challenged, that gets defensive the second it feels small, isn't your strength? It's your ego, and it's not your ally, it's your cage. Think about it like this. Imagine you're wearing a mask. At first, it protects you, helps you feel strong, but over time, the mask sticks. You forget it's even there. That's what the ego does. It locks you into a fixed story. This is who I am. This is what I deserve. This is how people should treat me. And anything that threatens that story, you push it away. Fast. That's the trap. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Let that sink in. Your ego, your need to feel smart, right, impressive, is what blocks growth, not fear, not failure. You, the version of you that refuses to be humbled. And here's the twist. Real self-respect? It starts with tearing your own illusions down, bit by bit. So if you feel stuck, ask yourself, are you evolving or just defending a version of yourself that's too scared to change? Because in the next section, we're going to look at what happens when you finally put the mask down and start facing the truth. Society rewards masks, not growth. Look around. What does the world actually reward? Is it depth, honesty, inner growth? No, it's the performance, the polished version, the curated identity. We clap for the confident speaker, not the one who struggled in silence to get there. We scroll past the raw and real to double-tap the highlight reel. You're not crazy for feeling disconnected. It's because the culture around you is designed to celebrate masks, not metamorphosis. From the time we're kids, we're trained to perform. Be the good student, the overachiever, the hustler, the brand. And every time you get applause for that act, a little part of your real self fades into the background. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of us we repress to stay accepted, to stay safe. But that shadow doesn't disappear. It festers. It waits. And the more we fake it, the more we feed it. You end up with a culture full of smiling faces and dying souls. People who look successful, but feel hollow. People who are praised for being so put together while secretly falling apart. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've spent years becoming who the world wanted you to be and lost track of who you actually are. Here's the hard truth. What society celebrates might be the very thing that's killing your authenticity. Growth isn't loud. It doesn't look good on Instagram. It's messy, quiet, often lonely. But it's real. So the question is, are you living your life or just performing the role you were given? In the next part, we'll explore what happens when that performance finally cracks and the truth starts to leak through. The shadow in history and now. Every powerful figure has a shadow. Not just the flaws you see in public, but the deeper, darker parts they tried to hide, even from themselves. Take Richard Nixon. Paranoid, brilliant, insecure. His obsession with control, with being seen as strong, ultimately destroyed him. Watergate wasn't just a scandal. It was the eruption of years of suppressed fear, resentment, and ego. He didn't lose because he was evil. He lost because he never faced his shadow. Freud understood this. He didn't just talk about sex and dreams. He talked about repression, the idea that what we bury doesn't go away. It mutates. It shows up in strange behavior, explosive emotion, self-sabotage. He knew the shadow was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. And if you ignored it, it would find a way to speak, through illness, addiction, or destruction. Even Steve Jobs, known for his visionary genius, had to grapple with his darker impulses: rage, perfectionism, emotional detachment. He was fired from the very company he built. Why? Because his brilliance was real, but so were his demons. It wasn't until he hit bottom that he began to grow into the kind of leader people could actually follow. Now compare that to today's influencer culture. Image is everything. Vulnerability is scripted. Ego isn't seen as a liability, it's monetized. The louder, brasher, and more self-obsessed you are, the more clicks you get. But here's the catch. When the shadow is ignored, especially in positions of power, the consequences don't just affect you, they ripple out. Into politics, into corporations, into culture. When leaders pretend they're whole, when they perform growth instead of doing the real work, they become dangerous. Not because they're bad people, but because they're blind to the wreckage their shadow can cause. In the next section, we'll talk about how to actually face that shadow and what it costs to stop running from it. Jung's shadow, what you refuse, rules you. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's the shadow, not just the bad parts of you, anger, envy, selfishness, but also the parts you've disowned because they didn't fit the image you were trying to project. The tenderness you were told was weakness, the ambition you were taught to suppress, the desires you felt ashamed to feel. Jung believed that every person carries a shadow, and the more you deny it, the more it controls you from the dark. That's why people repeat patterns they swear they've outgrown. Why someone who just wants peace always ends up in conflict. Why we sabotage relationships, success, even our own happiness, without knowing why. Because what you refuse to face ends up running the show. This is where individuation comes in. It's the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not polished, but integrated. And that means turning toward the shadow, not fighting it, not labeling it as evil, but listening, understanding, even learning from it. Because often, the parts of you you're most afraid of, they hold your deepest strength, your honesty, your passion, your boundaries. But most people never get there. They stay stuck in ego. And ego only wants one thing: to look good, to feel superior, to be right. That's why ego resists the shadow, because the shadow is humbling. It breaks the story. It reminds you that you're not just your achievements, your beliefs, or your curated identity. You're also the things you've run from. And here's the paradox. Real transformation doesn't come from chasing the light. It comes from making peace with the dark. From owning the parts of you that you were taught to bury. In the next part, we'll explore what this integration actually looks like in real life, and why facing the shadow might just be the most courageous thing you ever do. Comfort is the enemy of change. We love the idea that growth is peaceful, that it comes from calm mornings, self-love mantras, and learning to accept yourself. But that's a myth. Real growth? It's a fight, a disruption, a moment when everything comfortable starts to feel suffocating. Carl Jung nailed it when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light. but by making the darkness conscious. Think about that. It means you don't evolve by dreaming up your best self. You evolve by turning toward your worst self, the parts you'd rather deny, avoid, or blame on other people. And that's hard, because comfort isn't just physical, it's psychological. It's staying in a familiar relationship, even if it's toxic. It's clinging to old beliefs because they make you feel safe. It's numbing out instead of waking up. But here's the truth. Comfort is the enemy of change. It whispers, "You're fine. Don't look too deep. Don't stir things up." And if you listen, you stay stuck, smiling on the outside while something inside you knows it's dying. Growth doesn't happen on a yoga mat. It happens when you say, "I can't keep doing this," and finally mean it. When you face the guilt, the fear, the anger. When you stop outsourcing your pain to other people and start asking, "Why am I really like this?" It's messy. It hurts, but it's the only way through. Up next, we'll explore how to walk through that fire without losing yourself, and why your shadow, if you face it, might become your greatest ally. How to do real shadow work. So how do you actually do shadow work? Not the fluffy kind you find in pop psychology books, the real thing. The kind that leaves you shaken, humbled, and a little more awake. Start with this. What pisses you off way more than it should? What kind of people make your skin crawl, for reasons you can't quite explain? Those are clues. Triggers and projections are your shadow screaming, "Hey, I'm still here." When you overreact, when you judge someone harshly, chances are you're looking at a part of yourself that you've exiled. Shadow work begins with curiosity, not judgment. When you feel that surge of emotion, envy, rage, shame, don't run from it. Ask, why is this hitting me so hard? Who am I trying to be right now? And what am I terrified of being? Journaling helps, but not in a Dear Diary way. Write the raw stuff, the ugly thoughts, the ones you'd never post online, because that's where the gold is. Dream analysis is another path. Carl Jung believed dreams are where the shadow comes out to play. Unfiltered, symbolic, honest. Pay attention. Your mind's trying to show you what you've buried. Then there's active imagination. It sounds mystical, but it's simple. Have a dialogue with your shadow. Literally. Sit down, close your eyes, and let that repressed part of you speak. You might be surprised what it has to say, but let's be clear, this isn't easy. Shadow work is psychological combat. It's you versus every comforting lie you've ever told yourself. It's the opposite of feel good, but it's real. And in the next section, we'll look at what starts to change when you commit to that work, and how facing your shadow can lead to a kind of freedom you didn't know was possible. Integration over suppression. The goal isn't to kill your ego, it's to stop letting it drive the whole damn car. Integration isn't about becoming pure or perfect or ego-free. That's just another performance. Real integration means you see the ego for what it is, a tool, a part of you, not your master. When you've done the shadow work, you start to notice the shift. You still feel anger, jealousy, pride, but they don't control you. You don't need to pretend you're above it all. You just know, that's my ego flaring up, let's check that. It's self-awareness without self-hate. Humility without shame. Think about the people who've done this well. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison and came out not vengeful, but whole. He didn't deny his pain. He used it, integrated it. Or artists like David Bowie, who constantly reinvented himself by embracing all his inner contradictions, never trying to be just one thing, but all of who he was. Even great thinkers like Jung himself didn't preach ego death. He talked about wholeness, about becoming a self, not a mask. That means embracing the light and the dark, the success and the failure, the image and the truth beneath it. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start getting honest with yourself, something powerful happens. You stop being at war with who you are, and when the ego flares up, as it always will, you greet it like an old friend, not with fear, but with awareness. So we'll explore what life starts to feel like when you live from that place of wholeness, and why it might be the most radical thing you ever do. The inner tyrant versus inner truth. Inside you, there's a quiet war. On one side, the ego, your inner tyrant. It wants control. It craves applause. It feeds on feeling superior, even if it has to fake it. It tells you what to wear, what to say, who to be, so long as you stay admired. But here's the thing. That voice isn't interested in truth. It's interested in power. On the other side is the shadow. Not evil, not broken, just honest. It holds the parts of you you've neglected. Your pain, your fear, your doubt, your truth. And it doesn't scream for attention like the ego does. It whispers. It shows up in patterns, in dreams, in moments when your mask slips and something real escapes. The ego says, keep it together. The shadow says, look at what's falling apart. And who you become depends on who you listen to. This war isn't dramatic. It doesn't always look like breakdowns or big life changes. Sometimes it's a choice you make in silence. To stop performing, to stop hiding, to stop obeying the tyrant that's terrified of being ordinary, and finally start listening to the voice that's been buried underneath all along. That voice, that's your inner truth. And following it might just cost you everything you thought you were, so you can finally become who you actually are. You've been lied to about growth. Everywhere you look. Therapy ads, pop psychology books, wellness influencers. It's all soft lighting and soothing affirmations. Healing is marketed like a spa day. Light a candle, say you're enough, and poof, transformation. But that's not growth. That's sedation. Real growth doesn't feel good at first. It doesn't comfort you. It confronts you. It rips off the mask. It pulls the rug out from under your neatly curated identity. Shadow work isn't pretty. It's not designed for Instagram. It's raw, humbling. Sometimes it feels like dying. And that's exactly why so many spiritual circles and self-help spaces avoid it. Because it doesn't sell. You can't package inner war and call it self-care. The truth? Real change breaks you before it remakes you. It drags up everything you've avoided, your shame, your fear, your pettiness, your rage, and forces you to look it in the eye. Not to wallow in it, but to finally own it. This kind of work doesn't just heal, it awakens. And awakening hurts because you realize how much of your life has been spent living a lie, chasing approval, playing roles, avoiding the mirror. But once you've seen that truth, you can't unsee it. And that's where real freedom begins. Not in comfort, but in the courage to face what no one else wants to. Face your ego or be ruled by it. If you don't face your ego, make no mistake, it will run your life, quietly behind the scenes, pulling strings you don't even see. It's not some distant problem. It's the voice in your head telling you to stay safe, to play it cool, to never admit weakness. That voice decides your choices, your reactions, even how you see yourself. But here's the thing, you get to choose. You can keep living as the mask, chasing approval, hiding your truth, stuck in endless performance. Or you can step up, look that ego straight in the eye, name it, feel it, and say, "You don't control me anymore." This isn't some feel-good pep talk. It's urgent, because until you take that step, your ego is the real driver of your life. You might think you're steering, but you're just a passenger, trapped in a story that's not even yours. So I want to ask you, right now, who's really running your life? You or the mask you show the world? The moment you face your ego is the moment you start to own your life. No more hiding, no more running, just real freedom. And trust me, once you do it, there's no going back. Ready? Because the hardest, most important journey you'll ever take is the one inside.